This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. What may be a tremendous scientific advance tonight in attempts to create and harness the almost limitless, clean power of nuclear fusion, the power behind the sun. Instead of splitting atoms, as is done in nuclear power plants today, fusing atoms. Some of the world's leading researchers have spent decades and millions of dollars trying to achieve this in the laboratory. Scientists in Utah tonight believe they have taken a big step forward in a little test tube. CBS News correspondent John Blackstone begins our coverage of what may have been achieved and what it may mean to you.
If what is happening in these test tubes is indeed controlled nuclear fusion, as the scientists who set up this experiment believe, then this laboratory may one day be known as the birthplace of cheap, clean, and abundant energy. The two scientists who believe they have found a practical method of nuclear fusion say when they started, the chances of success seemed to be 1 in a billion.
Stan and I thought this experiment was so stupid that we financed it ourselves.
The scientists were attempting for the first time to accomplish nuclear fusion at room temperature. Until now, the fusing of two atoms to release energy required so much heat that the experiments consume more energy than they produce. But the scientists working in Utah say in their experiments at room temperature, they have been producing more energy than they use.
Much more energy is coming out than we're putting in.
The raw materials used in the experiment are common metals and seawater. If the experiment can be reproduced on a larger scale, seawater could replace coal, oil, and uranium.
A cubic foot of seawater is equivalent to 10 tons of coal.
The experimental findings have not yet been published for review by other scientists, but Edward Teller, the physicist who played a key role in the development of the hydrogen bomb, may have to revise his prediction that the practical use of fusion energy is 40 years away.
It seems that controlled fusion works. It did not in free space, but in the confinement of a metal in which the hydrogen nuclei can move freely. It appears that the reaction does go forward and there may be a real breakthrough.
The scientists in Utah say they have tried hard to prove that their experiments are wrong. Now, other scientists will begin to study if this is the breakthrough it seems to be. John Blackstone, CBS News, Salt Lake City.
Science has long known how to make atoms fuse at extraordinarily high temperatures, but the problem for decades has been to control such fusion and put it to practical use. Could today's discovery be that first step?
I'm very excited that we've found a new fundamental process that's never been observed before for how fusion might be made. On the other hand, it's clear that this process is very small scale.
Yes, it is sort of a surprise to many people in the fusion community, and we wait with interest to hear the details of what's been done.
With great interest because of the eventual promise of fusion energy. The raw material, deuterium, is found in water, a fuel supply that would last as long as Earth is around to need it. Unlike today's nuclear plants, a fusion energy plant would not create radioactive waste. The process also cannot rage out of control, as it did, for example, at Chernobyl, since atoms are being fused, not split apart. And finally, fusion would avoid atmospheric pollution.
It would eliminate the problems of the greenhouse effect and acid rain type problems. So in many ways, it's an ideal energy source for the long term.
The Department of Energy is spending over $500 million on fusion projects, none of which currently involves the new technique. But a spokesman said today that funding for this research will start in May. Susan Spencer, CBS News, Washington.
Another pre-holiday terrorism warning to U.S. airlines. Another U.S. administration belatedly defending a decision to keep the flying public in the dark after the don't tell the public policy was exposed. President Bush's top spokesman confirmed today that the FAA was quietly warned last week, or warned airlines, but not air travelers, that terrorists might be planning to hijack a U.S. airliner in Europe. Our coverage begins with Mark Phillips in Washington.
There have been 10 security bulletins issued by the FAA since the Pan Am disaster last December. Sensitivities and fears have been heightened ever since. Sources have told CBS News that today's alert was issued after a tip from the Jordanian government. It warned that 3 Palestinian men traveling on possibly forged Bahraini, Pakistani, or North Yemen passports might try to hijack a U.S. plane. But what might have been a routine tightening of security has become a major political storm into how this alert leaked out. The FAA issued a rare statement today acknowledging the alert and saying that this sensitive information is not designed for public distribution. An investigation has been launched.
This information was released on an unauthorized basis. I suggest that there will be ramifications.
When the FAA determines that a threat exists, it notifies the State Department, its own offices, and the Airlines Association. They respectively tell the individual airlines and airports, and U.S. embassies overseas, which inform foreign governments. The investigation into the leak in this case is concentrating on what happened once the alert got to the London embassy. But while the investigation continues, today's leak has again raised the issue of who should be told that a threat exists.
We must have the choice to fly or not. How dare they feel that we can't be told, that we're not worth being told.
But the government view is that publicizing alerts plays into terrorists' hands.
You can jeopardize your sources, and that's to no one's interest. Not to the interests of security officials or the traveling public that those officials are trying to protect.
Another fear is that publicizing security alerts could paralyze air traffic, which is one of the terrorists' goals. For now, all males between 15 and 50 years of age traveling on the suspect passports will be singled out for special attention. Mark Phillips, CBS News, Washington.
Security officials are not commenting on what additional precautions are enforced tonight, but U.S. airlines in Europe are taking the FAA warnings seriously. The alert couldn't have come at a worse time. Traffic is at a pre-holiday peak, with long lines for screening of passengers and baggage.
If you carry anything on behalf of somebody else, it can be a bomb or explosive.
American military families checking in at Frankfurt Airport were all too aware that servicemen have been singled out in the past by terrorists.
Yeah, I'm a nervous child. I wish I could take a boat. There's so many terrorists and bombings going on, and no one want to die that kind of way.
If I was warned, I would never travel. I'm terrified.
There has been no official warning to the public, but U.S. servicemen were told of the latest threat on tonight's American Forces news broadcast in Europe.
3 Palestinian terrorists may try to hijack a plane in Europe.
Passengers boarding U.S. flights in London said they thought the U.S. government should have issued a public warning.
This way it's my choice as to whether I take the flight or not.
One U.S. airline said it would have advised the public if the warning had mentioned a specific flight. But the bulletin from the FAA is not specific. It mentions no time frame and implies that all U.S. airlines operating in Europe are at risk. The selective warning that preceded the loss of 270 lives in the Pan Am 103 bombing has made the matter of who gets warned a delicate issue for governments and airlines. This latest FAA warning was leaked to British newspapers by someone, but it's not clear who or why.
It might have been let out perhaps to even prove that airlines were on the ball and that people were taking security seriously.
But this amateur video today showed that there's still serious holes in security at London's Heathrow Airport. 3 young men armed with a camera entered the airport maintenance area, boarded a British Airways Boeing 747, and had free run of the plane, including the flight deck, all without being detected, leaving tonight a lot of embarrassing questions to be answered by those responsible for the safety of air passengers. Tom Fenton, CBS News, London.
And still to come on the CBS Evening News, reporter Linda Tyra on tearful testimony from Fawn Hall at the Oliver North trial. And Harold Dow on what money and commercialism are beginning to do to high school basketball.
At any given moment, there are thousands of planes in the sky all across America. At Raytheon, we've developed a totally new display, combining the fundamentals of air traffic control with the most advanced electronics to give the clearest picture of the sky ever put on a screen. To help keep the skies safer than ever into the next century, Raytheon, where quality starts with fundamentals.
What do more drivers say after an oil change with Pennzoil at Jiffy Lube?
I can drive for miles and miles. I can drive for miles and miles. I can drive for miles and miles and miles and miles.
Every 3,000 miles. Quality Pennzoil. Lube. Fluids. 10 minutes. Jiffy Lube. We give more cars more miles and miles.
Before I started wearing no nonsense, I used to have more nail polish on my pantyhose than on my fingernails. Looks better here, doesn't it?
Pantyhose that last are no nonsense.
The #1 hit.
How fast can Ambisol relieve toothache pain? Before you can say
Ambisol.
canker sore pain? Before you can say
Ambisol.
Ambisol relieves minor mouth pain on contact. Ambisol, liquid or gel.
A U.S. Navy official and a major defense contractor became the latest to plead guilty today in the slow investigation of massive defense contract fraud inside and outside the Pentagon. Teledyne Industries agreed to pay more than $4 million in penalties. Suspended U.S. Navy official Stuart Berlin pleaded guilty to bribery, conspiracy, and making false statements. Tears and a clash with the judge on the witness stand today at the criminal trial of Oliver North. CBS News reporter Linda Tyra covered the court session as North's former secretary, Fawn Hall, faced questions about her shredding, falsifying, and smuggling evidence in the criminal case, and about why the testimony she gave today differs from what she told the grand jury.
I just like to say that hopefully the good guy will win.
In her second day of testimony at the trial of Oliver North, Fawn Hall made it clear whose side she's on. She tearfully described her 4 years of work as North's secretary. Hall said, "I never met a man who worked harder for his country." Her voice cracked. She called North very inspirational. Defense attorney Brendan Sullivan gently pleaded, "Try to relax. If you cry, I'm going to cry." But Hall wept openly as she remembered how she met North and his family at Easter 6 years ago. Earlier, Hall locked horns with prosecutor John Kecker. He relentlessly questioned her about her statements to a grand jury, which differed in places from her testimony in the trial. Did Oliver North order her to retype documents the day before the Attorney General sent investigators to search North's office? What day did she and North shred a large number of documents? Exactly what did she smuggle out of the office? An exasperated Hall tried to interrupt several times, insisting that her memory is clouded on certain points. Finally, Judge Gerhard Gazelle was forced to intervene, but Hall continued to speak, prompting Gazelle to warn her, "Please keep your mouth shut while I'm talking." Moments later, as Kecker resumed his grilling, Hall began sobbing and asked for a recess. Hall, who is no novice at fielding tough questions in public, expressed relief when it was finally over.
It's tough when people portray you as a witness for the prosecution when you were a witness for the truth.
Fawn Hall told reporters she has other things she wants to say. And so, like many former White House staffers, she's writing a book. Linda Tyra, CBS News at the federal courthouse in Washington.
The House voted today to raise the national minimum wage from $3.35 an hour to $4.55, what would be the first minimum wage increase in 8 years. President Bush has threatened to veto any increase beyond $4.25 an hour. But House Democrats did make a compromise move toward Mr. Bush's other major demand, creating a special lower minimum wage for newly hired workers. The whole bill now goes to the Senate. The Commerce Department today said that the nation's gross national product grew at a moderate annual rate of 2.4% in the last 3 months of 1988. That is slightly higher than previously estimated.
Tell them that you love them.
The Tulip Bowl Bouquet from Teleflora. Easter flowers and something worth keeping.
Tell the flora.
To send one anywhere, call your local florist.
We compared the Subaru Justy ECVT from 0 to 60 against 3 popular automatics. Against the Hyundai Excel, we blew their doors off. Against the Toyota Tercel, we blew their doors off. And against the Porsche 928S, well, they blew our doors off. But with a price of only $77.91, we can afford to get our doors fixed. Test drive it.
Get $500 back on a Subaru Justy or 4.9 financing through May 2nd.
For
financial serenity. To soar beyond the reach of worry, the Travelers gives 1 out of every 6 Americans this financial peace of mind. With secure new pathways toward growth and the overriding promise of insurance protection, the Travelers, you're better off under the umbrella.
It's time to change your bulb to Philips. Philips Longer Life Square bulbs last 33% longer than ordinary bulbs.
A 21-year-old gunman described as very dangerous was shot and wounded late today, ending a reign of terror in the Denver suburbs. Eugene Thompson was captured after he shot 2 police officers. Earlier, Thompson allegedly killed 2 people and terrorized the area for hours. Our man in Denver, Bob McNamara, has a report.
Workers run from an office building fearing a suspected killer is inside. He is not. But all day it was like this. A massive police manhunt for a murderer gripping Denver's south suburbs. The suspect, identified as known house burglar Eugene Thompson, apparently armed with an assault weapon. Thompson believed the pre-dawn kidnapper and killer of a mother and daughter and the rapist of a 3rd woman, a man called Dangerous.
Very dangerous. He was armed at leaving the last address. He was armed at the other 2 locations.
Early today, police found the car of one of the victims wrecked during a getaway, followed by numerous sightings of a man on foot, apparently with a weapon.
He was walking with his left hand holding something in his coat, and he was limping pretty good.
While police canine units went house to house, and SWAT teams surrounded and entered several houses they thought Thompson might be holed up, more than 24 nearby schools locked their doors with students released only to parents.
There were a few of them that showed some emotions with it, but I think they feel real good about the fact that the buildings are secured and they have adult people with them.
The episode began at this house when a woman called the 911 emergency number, but the call was cut off. Later, police found the woman at her daughter's house, both women murdered. The 3rd woman was sexually assaulted when the gunman broke into a house at random 10 miles away. It wasn't until late today, more than 10 hours after it all began, the drama had a bloody ending. The suspect wounding 2 policemen who'd cornered him in a house. And while one of the downed officers was dragged to safety, Eugene Thompson, the wanted man, was overtaken. A MAC-11 automatic assault weapon found at his side. A day of murder and fear was finally over. Bob McNamara, CBS News, Denver.
A happy homecoming late today for the man imprisoned 12 years in Texas for a murder to which another man now has all but confessed. Randall Dale Adams returned home to Columbus, Ohio. At the same time, the Dallas District Attorney announced he will not retry Adams.
It's almost impossible to find sufficient credible evidence to try a case that's 13 years old.
Adams was the subject of the documentary film The Thin Blue Line.
Compaq has consistently led the industry with products that incorporate the latest technology.
Ms. Lucas, it's time to board.
You have time for this?
I have time.
The Compaq laptop pushes the state of the art.
Now that's neat.
It's my secret weapon.
Compaq understands what its customers want.
Welcome to New York. How was the flight?
I can't wait to show you.
Excuse me, ever try this coffee?
Oh, no. I use special gourmet beans.
So do we.
I roast them to perfection.
So do we.
I brew fresh, rich coffee.
So do we, but then we freeze dry to lock in superior fresh brewed flavor and aroma until you release it.
Perfect. Who are you?
We're the only ones who do all this. We're Taster's Choice, the choice for taste.
If I had to choose between pantyhose that just look good or pantyhose that just hold up, but then I don't have to choose.
Pantyhose that last are no nonsense.
See the colors of Puerto Rico, colors, colors everywhere. Puerto Rico, the shining star.
The United States made the next move today in tit-for-tat expulsions with the Soviets. A Soviet trade official in New York was ordered to leave. The Soviets recently expelled an American military attaché from Moscow. That was after the U.S. kicked out a Soviet military attaché accused of spying in Washington. The Afghan government reported today that U.S.-backed rebels fired hundreds of rockets into Jalalabad and blew up a key bridge used to supply Jalalabad. CBS News correspondent Bert Quint, along the border in Pakistan, has the latest on this battle to wrest control of Jalalabad from the Soviet-backed Afghan army and turn it into the rebel capital.
Rebel forces claim today they have isolated Jalalabad, but they still seem far from taking Afghanistan's third biggest city. They've given up the full-scale attack that failed and gone back to guerrilla warfare with some heavy firepower from anti-tank missiles and tanks captured from Jalalabad's defenders. The Mujahideen commander says the rebels now control Jalalabad Airport and the Jalalabad-Kabul highway. If they maintain that control, the government will be hard put to resupply its 10,000 or more troops in the besieged provincial capital. But those troops are well dug in, supported by Soviet-made rockets, artillery, and bombers from Kabul. And as the weeks pass, it looks as though the Mujahideen have made one of their biggest mistakes of the war. They took a big gamble based on political, not military calculations. Now that rebel leaders in Pakistan have formed a provisional government, they have to find a place to put it. The idea is Jalalabad, 100 miles from Kabul.
What kind of, let's say, legitimacy this government could have when they have no space in Afghanistan?
The attempt has cost the Mujahideen perhaps 500 dead in 2 weeks, compared with 2,000 killed in all of last year. But it's more than casualties. This is a blow to the prestige of the resistance movement and a boost for communist defenders throughout Afghanistan who now may be encouraged to keep fighting. Bert Quint, CBS News, Peshawar, Pakistan.
Pentagon officials said today they now believe they know what caused that spectacular failure of Tuesday's first submarine test launch of a Trident II missile. A fault in the part that swivels the rocket nozzles from side to side is believed to have turned the Navy's new expensive and most powerful nuclear missile into a $25 million exploding pinwheel.
One was named Wilbur, the other Orville. Two brothers who shared a belief. A belief that when the fundamentals of aeronautics were properly applied, man could fly. At Raytheon, we haven't forgotten their lesson. Consider the revolutionary new Starship from Beech Aircraft, a Raytheon company. Many of the fundamentals are the same as the one built by Wilbur and Orville. Raytheon, where quality starts with fundamentals.
After going to the hospital and after being treated for my broken finger, I realized that I had a headache. And the doctor suggested that I take Tylenol. It emphasized how much hospitals and how much doctors really trust Tylenol. So I went ahead and I took it. Ever since then, I've been using Tylenol.
Shelley Pyle trusts Tylenol, the pain reliever hospitals use most.
If they feel it's good enough for their patients, then I feel it's good enough for me also.
Now try new gelatin-coated gel caps, only from Tylenol.
This is a phone, this is a finger. This is how easy it is for anyone to get 30 minutes of 100% fiber optic long-distance calls free. Just call US Sprint now and talk with the best.
The Honda Lawnmower. It was first with a convenient blade brake clutch, with an automotive-type shaft drive, with an easy-starting overhead valve engine. It's the first mower good enough to be a Honda.
The NCAA basketball regional semifinals will be played tonight. The games to be televised nationally in prime time, generating publicity and income for advertisers, for networks, and for the colleges taking part. That's college basketball. Now, correspondent Harold Dow tells us the same sort of commercialism is coming to high school basketball.
Faulkner scoring rebound, but Anderson takes it away and puts it in.
Welcome to the world of big-time basketball, high school basketball. A world where 18-year-old Kenny Anderson finds himself part of an industry that is worth billions.
This is a boy who is now the leading scorer in the state of New York, as well as the leading scorer in the history of New York City. He can do it all.
You're trying to achieve 7 miles a second.
Anderson is considered the best point guard to come out of high school in the last quarter century. He's ranked #1 in the nation. His high school experience consisted of 18-hour days of studying, practicing, and playing in more than 100 games for Archbishop Malloy High School. Anderson says it was not fun, it was a job.
Sometimes that probably got me a little depressed at times during my high school career, but that's, the price I was paying, getting all this publicity.
When Don Beard looks at stars like Kenny Anderson and high school sports, he sees dollar signs.
$62 billion passed through the hands of teenagers in this country last year.
$62 billion?
It shows the individual schools how to take care of their sponsors.
Beard is president of a company called School Properties, Inc. It sells advertising during high school sporting events.
There's a totally untapped market of millions and millions of spectators that are a captive audience of thousands of events that happen each year.
Last week, a cable network signed a long-term agreement with the National Federation of State High School Associations to telecast a high school game of the week.
I think we need to face the fact that the business world, the corporate world, is going to be involved in education.
And that's exactly what has critics worried. They say the business world will bring money to high schools, and that money, they say, will encourage recruiting violations, illicit payments to athletes, and some of the same scandals that have taken place on the college campus.
Are high schools ready for this?
I don't think they are. I don't think people have thought it out clearly enough. I think there are ramifications of it that are very serious. We just can look to the college scene to see what the problems are.
Kenny Anderson, I hereby induct you into the Gatorade Circle of Champions.
For the teenager who becomes a sports superstar, the pressure can be intense.
Just one more, just one more. Kenny.
Pressure on high school stars is nothing new. 25 years ago, a skinny kid named Lou Alcindor was in the same spotlight. He's been a star ever since then, but he knows how too much pressure can hurt a young person.
You end up forgetting that you are just a teenager and going through all the emotional and physical upheaval that accompanies puberty. You tend to see yourself as a professional.
I believe this boy is probably getting phone calls day in and day out, hundreds of schools recruiting him. Very difficult for a young man to keep things in the proper perspective.
Well, I'm Kenny Anderson, just a shy type of kid with, just got a lot of publicity over this little round ball called basketball. It's just a God-given talent that I have.
He's a humble young man.
Not long ago, high school basketball was just kids playing a game. The idea of selling it was unthinkable. Money couldn't buy it. Money couldn't influence it. Until now. Harold Dow, CBS News, New York.
And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. Dan Rather, see you tomorrow. Good night.
I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Tomorrow, 10 years after Camp David, is peace in the Middle East possible?
Also, Martin Scorsese and violinist Itzhak Perlman on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.